There's this quiet revolution going on right now in Canadian online shopping, and it's huge. We're talking 91% of consumers are now actively trying to buy logo. So today we're going to break down exactly what this massive shift means for small businesses and, more importantly, lay out the playbook to capture this new wave of customers. So let's just kick things off with a big question. With this flood of customers actively searching for made-in-Canada products, are Canadian businesses even set up to be found? The data we're about to look at, well, it suggests there's a pretty big disconnect happening. And here's the number that really kicked this whole thing off: 91%. According to a big national survey by Lightspeed Commerce, that's the percentage of Canadians who are now actively focused on buying Canadian-made products or are planning to. Think about that for a second. That's not a niche market, folks. That's pretty much everyone. So let's be really clear here. This isn't just some passing trend. We're talking about a fundamental, data-backed shift in how people shop. The whole Buy Canadian movement is literally reshaping the entire market. And the numbers, well, they speak for themselves. And look, this isn't just about some warm, fuzzy, positive sentiment. The data from Nielsen IQ confirms this is an active choice. We're talking about nearly half of Canadian consumers now deliberately avoiding U.S. products whenever they can. This isn't a passive preference. It's a conscious decision being made right at the digital checkout. And you can see the impact right here in the actual sales figures. This isn't about feelings anymore. This is about dollars and cents. Through September of last year, Canadian goods outperformed their U.S. competitors in growth by more than 13 percentage points. That is a massive competitive edge, and it's being driven entirely by consumer choice. Okay, but this might be the most powerful piece of evidence of all. Even with inflation and all the economic uncertainty, Canadians were willing to pay a 16% premium for local food. When people are willing to open their wallets and spend more to buy local, it's not just a trend. It's become a core value. So, what lit the fuse on this whole movement? Let's be honest, pro-Canadian sentiment has always been there, right? But a very specific trade dispute acted as this powerful catalyst that turned a kind of passive preference into a full-blown, active national habit. Okay, so let's walk through this timeline really quick. It starts in April 2025 when the U.S. tariffs were announced, and bam, Canadian exports dropped almost 16%. By September, Canada had removed some of its counter tariffs. Then, heading into February 2026, a U.S. court ruled the original tariffs illegal. But then a new global tariff was announced. The key takeaway from all this? It's simple, really. This whole back and forth kept the Buy Canadian conversation right in the headlines and at the top of everyone's mind for months and months. And here's the real-world result of all that for the average shopper. The days of just automatically finding a way better deal on an American e-commerce site, well, they started to fade. When you actually factored in shipping, the currency conversion, and all the tariffs, suddenly the Canadian options just became way more appealing for very real, very practical reasons, not just patriotic ones. Okay, so the demand is obviously there. The big question is, how do you capture it? So now we're going to get into the core of this whole thing, a really clear 4-step playbook for any Canadian business that's ready to take advantage of this moment. So here are the 4 pillars of the whole strategy. Number 1, lead with your Canadian identity. 2, configure your store specifically for Canadian buyers. 3, tell the story of your supply chain. And 4, use local SEO so people can actually find you. Let's break these down. Okay, so step 1 is all about clarity. And look, sticking a maple leaf in your logo just isn't going to cut it anymore. You need to use specific, searchable language, things like Ottawa-made or Ontario-sourced. And this flows right into step 3, which is telling your supply chain story. Don't just say it's made in Canada, show it. Where do you get your materials? Who are your local partners? That story, that's your most powerful marketing tool, hands down. Now for step 2, you've got to remove any friction for a Canadian buyer. I want you to think of this as rolling out a digital welcome mat. It means showing prices in Canadian dollars, offering Interac as a payment option, having seamless Canada Post shipping. All those little details build trust. And while you're configuring your store, you absolutely have to be thinking about step 4, local SEO. Because let's face it, if customers can't find you, none of this other stuff even matters. Things like a Google business profile and using local keywords, that's how people in your own city are going to discover your brand online.
All right, so now that we have the playbook, it's just as important, maybe even more important, to know what not to do. In the rush to capture all this demand, a lot of businesses are making the same predictable and pretty costly mistakes. So let's break down the common pitfalls you need to avoid.
This really frames the difference perfectly. On one side, you've got the mistake, treating your website like it's just a simple product listing, with a generic About Us page, and this is critical, a broken mobile checkout. Then, on the other side, you have the strategy, focusing on actually building a brand, telling that authentic supply chain story, and making sure your site works absolutely flawlessly on a phone. So let's distill this down to the 3 most critical errors we see people making. Number 1, and this is absolutely non-negotiable, launching without mobile optimization. Seriously, 1 in 3 purchases happens on a phone. If they can't check out easily, you're just throwing away business. Number 2 is treating your site like a listing, not a brand-building exercise. People want to connect with a story, not just a transaction. And finally, number 3, ignoring what happens after the purchase. That communication is your golden opportunity to turn a one-time buyer into a loyal fan of your Canadian brand. Which brings us to our final section, and honestly, it's all about timing. This massive shift in how people are shopping has created this really unique window of opportunity. But here's the thing. It is not going to stay open forever. And this quote really just gets to the heart of it all. It says, "The business case for a Canadian-positioned e-commerce store in 2026 is not patriotism, it is timing." Think about that. This isn't about appealing to emotion. It's a cold, hard, strategic business decision that's based on a very unique moment in the market.
And this is the long-term play we're talking about. It's about so much more than just a sales bump this quarter. The businesses that build their digital infrastructure now are the ones who are going to hold on to the customer relationships that come out of this whole period. It's really about building a loyal customer base that will stick with you for the future.
So that really leaves us with one final thought. The consumer demand, it's documented. The playbook, it's clear. And that window of opportunity, it's wide open. The only question left is your business ready to step through it?